Most supercars are built to turn heads, but this one turned the entire industry upside down. The Vector W8 wasn't just another flashy vehicle, it was a full-on declaration of war against Ferrari and Lamborghini. Born in America, crafted with aerospace ambitions, and wrapped in a design straight out of a sci-fi film, the Vector W8 promised to be the fastest, boldest, and most advanced car of its time. But behind the stunning exterior was a chaotic story of broken promises, engineering nightmares, and corporate betrayal. Only 17 were ever made, and every single one carried the weight of a crumbling dream. This is the true story of how one man's obsession with building the ultimate hypercar ended in lawsuits, financial ruin, and the fall of an entire company. If you think the world of exotic cars is all glamour and glory, think again. Sometimes chasing perfection drives you straight off a cliff. The birth of an American hypercar, the Vector W8. In the 1980s, while Ferrari and Lamborghini dominated the supercar world, one American engineer had a bold dream: to build a car that could outperform them all. Gerald Wiegert, founder of Vector Motors, introduced the Vector W8, a wild, wedge-shaped machine that looked like it drove straight out of a sci-fi movie. But this wasn't just a pretty face. It packed a twin-turbo V8 engine with over 600 horsepower, aerospace-inspired controls, and a claimed top speed of 242 miles per hour, numbers that would still turn heads today. Wiegert marketed it as the fighter jet for the street, and it captured the imagination of wealthy car enthusiasts. Unlike traditional European supercars, the W8 was 100% American-made, an audacious statement of innovation and independence. On paper, it was a hypercar decades ahead of its time, but underneath the glossy exterior, cracks were forming, and soon, the dream would begin to unravel. Every once in a while, the automotive world produces a car so daring, so ambitious, and so ahead of its time that it doesn't just push the boundaries, it shatters them. Exotic cars are supposed to be a celebration of speed, power, and beauty. They exist to turn heads, to inspire awe, and to prove that engineering can achieve the impossible. But sometimes, ambition crosses into obsession. And when that happens, even the most breathtaking machines can destroy the very companies that gave them life. This is the story of one such car, a vehicle designed to redefine the meaning of exotic. It had everything: jaw-dropping design, mind-bending performance, and technology that was years ahead of the competition. It was supposed to put its company on the map, turning it into a household name among Ferrari, Lamborghini, and McLaren. But instead, it brought everything crashing down. Why? Because brilliance often comes with a cost. Production was slow, development costs spiraled out of control, and the price tag was so high that only a handful of people could even dream of owning it. Add to that unreliable performance and a market that wasn't ready, and you had the perfect recipe for disaster. Today, we're diving into the incredible and tragic tale of the exotic car that bankrupted its own company. A story of ambition, risk, and what happens when chasing perfection goes too far. And that is the remarkable tale of the exotic car that bankrupted its own company. What began as a bold dream to compete with the legends of the supercar world ended up as a cautionary tale about ambition without limits. The car itself was everything an exotic should be: stunning design, incredible performance, and engineering that felt like it belonged in the future. But behind the beauty was a financial nightmare, one that drained the company dry before it could even catch its breath. The truth is, building a car is one thing. Building a successful business around that car is something else entirely. Timing, cost control, and market awareness matter just as much as horsepower and top speed. This company, blinded by the glory of creating the ultimate machine, overlooked the practical realities of survival, and in doing so, it sacrificed its own future. Yet, even in failure, this car left a lasting legacy. Collectors still talk about it. Enthusiasts still dream about it. Historians point to it as one of the greatest examples of how innovation can both inspire and destroy. Some call it a tragedy. Others call it a masterpiece ahead of its time. So, what do you think? Was this car doomed from the start, or was it simply unlucky in the market it entered? Would you have wanted to see the company succeed, or is this one of those stories best left as legend? Hype versus reality, the million-dollar mess. The Vector W8 launched with bold promises, speed records, aircraft-grade engineering, and exclusivity like no other. But for the few who actually bought one, the experience was anything but smooth. Despite a price tag north of $400,000, nearly $1 million today adjusted for inflation, early owners faced long delays, quality issues, and endless tweaks. The car looked like a spaceship, but drove more like a prototype. Doors didn't seal right, electronics glitched, and overheating was common. Gerald Wiegert, ever the showman, continued hyping the car as the future of performance. But behind the scenes, resources were drying up fast. Vector's tiny team struggled to meet demand, and each car built was bleeding money. Lawsuits followed from frustrated buyers and disgruntled investors. Instead of being a cash cow, the W8 became a financial black hole. What started as a revolution quickly turned into a cautionary tale, and the cracks in the empire were now impossible to ignore. Engineering nightmares and broken promises. Behind the sleek Vector W8 exterior was a mess of mismatched parts, rushed fixes, and constant re-engineering. Gerald Wiegert insisted on absolute control, often overriding his engineers and making last-minute changes that disrupted production. The car boasted aerospace-level technology, but in reality, it was cobbled together with off-the-shelf components, including parts from GM and even boats. Every vehicle was basically hand-built, which meant no two Vectors were exactly the same, and not in a good way. Customers who shelled out hundreds of thousands expected perfection. Instead, they got inconsistency, overheating engines, and unpredictable handling. Some owners waited years for their cars to be delivered, only to find out they were still plagued with problems. Wiegert's promises, like a 242 miles per hour top speed, remained unproven. With each broken commitment, investor confidence crumbled and the media began to turn. What was meant to be America's answer to Ferrari was quickly spiraling into a mechanical and reputational disaster. Corporate chaos and the fall of Vector. As technical issues piled up, internal tensions at Vector Motors reached a boiling point. Gerald Wiegert's relentless control over the company clashed with the engineers and financial backers trying to keep the business afloat. Mismanagement, ballooning costs, and a toxic workplace culture turned the dream into a battleground. Investors grew impatient, and lawsuits mounted from both buyers and suppliers. Then came the final blow, a hostile takeover attempt by Megatech, an Indonesian company with ties to Lamborghini. Wiegert was pushed out of his own company, and control of Vector slipped away. Under new leadership, a few more half-hearted attempts were made to revive the brand, but the damage was irreversible. The heart of Vector, its bold vision, died with Wiegert's departure. By the mid-1990s, the company was a shell of its former self. What was once hyped as America's greatest supercar revolution had become one of the auto industry's most legendary collapses. When the dream explodes, bankruptcy and betrayal. After years of delays, lawsuits, and mounting debt, Vector Motors finally collapsed. Gerald Wiegert was pushed out in a hostile takeover, and the dream he'd built unraveled almost overnight. New management stripped away the brand's identity, and bankruptcy soon followed. Production halted, future models were scrapped, and the once-hyped W8 became a symbol of failed ambition. Wiegert's vision had burned bright, but without a strong foundation, it couldn't survive the weight of its own promise. What we can learn from the Vector W8 failure. The Vector W8 taught the world that vision alone isn't enough. Gerald Wiegert had ambition and bold ideas, but poor execution, mismanagement, and over-promising led to disaster. The car was revolutionary in concept, but unreliable in reality. Without teamwork, financial discipline, and a clear production strategy, even the greatest ideas can collapse. Still, the W8 is remembered, not for what it achieved, but for what it dared to be. It's a reminder that in the pursuit of greatness, grounded execution matters as much as innovation. The Vector W8 was a bold vision, fast, futuristic, and fearless. But in the world of exotic cars, big dreams without solid foundations often end in disaster. What was meant to be America's answer to Ferrari became a cautionary tale in overreach and mismanagement. Still, the Vector lives on in automotive legend, not for its performance, but for its ambition. If you found this story as wild as the car itself, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more insane car stories, and drop a comment. Which car do you think was the most epic flop in history?